The 1980 Mr. Olympia started off unlike anything fans had ever seen before. For the first time in history, the event wasn't being organized by the Weider brothers, the powerhouse leaders of the bodybuilding world. Instead, personal friends of Arnold Schwarzenegger were now calling the shots. And get this, they paid a small fortune just to secure the rights to host the competition that year. This sudden change in management had a lot of people feeling suspicious. After all, Mr. Olympia had always been known for its strict standards, and now the contest was in the hands of people who were, let's say, very close to one of the sport's biggest legends. You can imagine what both the fans and athletes were thinking at that moment. There was definitely something in the air, and not in a good way, even before the show kicked off. Expectations for the event were sky high. All eyes were on Mike Mentzer, one of the most gifted bodybuilders the sport had ever seen. With his thick, perfectly balanced physique, he was the odds-on favorite to take the title that year. The fitness media, the fans, even the other competitors were all betting on Mike to become the new champ. Meanwhile, Franco Columbu, the reigning Mr. Olympia, was dealing with his own personal drama. A serious accident had left him physically compromised, and his condition going into the contest was far from ideal. A lot of people felt he shouldn't even be stepping on stage. But here's where things get interesting. It was Arnold himself who talked Franco into competing anyway, despite his obvious limitations. And let's just say, a lot of folks found that really suspicious. Picture it. The current champion, clearly not at his best, walking onto the biggest stage in bodybuilding, all because his buddy encouraged him to. The crowd in Sydney was hyped, but also a little skeptical. Sure, they were expecting a historic show, but they also wanted a fair one. And with all these weird circumstances swirling around, the vibe was anything but normal. It felt like the stage was set not just for a battle of muscles, but for a clash of egos and behind-the-scenes politics. With that heavy atmosphere hanging over everything, the tension between the athletes and the organizers just kept growing. People couldn't help but wonder, was a 1980 Mr. Olympia going to be decided by the best physique or by backstage influence? Sadly, as the event went on, that question would only get louder. While the bodybuilding world was placing bets on who would win, Arnold Schwarzenegger was quietly doing his thing back in California. Keeping a low profile, he stuck to a more relaxed training routine. Nothing like the hardcore intensity that had made him a six-time Mr. Olympia before. His workouts were lighter, focused more on staying in decent shape rather than chasing peak competition form. Whenever someone asked, Arnold flat out denied any plans to compete. He said he was just training for his new movie, Conan the Barbarian. And honestly, that made sense. Conan needed a strong, heroic look, but not necessarily the freakish level of muscle required for Mr. Olympia. This whole "I'm not competing" vibe helped Arnold stay way under the radar. While Mike Mentzer, Boyer Co., and the rest were grinding full throttle, Arnold looked like he was living in a completely different world. Nobody really took the idea of him stepping on stage seriously. But looking back, was he already plotting something from the start? When Arnold finally landed in Australia, a lot of people were shocked at how he looked. Sure, he still had that commanding presence, no doubt about it, but his physique was nowhere near Mr. Olympia standards. Experts at the time pointed out that he was holding a ton of water, which really blurred his muscle definition. And for a show at this level, that's a huge deal. One of the big reasons for that bloated look? Cortisone. Arnold had been using it to treat a shoulder injury, and one of the lovely side effects of cortisone is water retention. So not only was he lacking the brutal prep he was famous for, but he was also fighting against a chemical disadvantage that wrecked his aesthetics. Even though it was pretty clear he wasn't in top shape, Arnold showed up brimming with confidence. That attitude sparked a weird mix of respect and irritation backstage. Some thought he was just there to stir the pot. Others started wondering if something bigger was going on. After all, you don't just show up at Mr. Olympia without some kind of ace up your sleeve, right? All this only added to the already crazy tension between the competitors. If Arnold was really going to compete, would he be judged by the same standards as everyone else? When Arnold Schwarzenegger finally hit the stage at the 1980 Mr. Olympia, the crowd absolutely lost it. The cheers roared through the hall, and for a moment, it felt like pure magic. I mean, come on, it was Arnold, the living legend of bodybuilding, making a surprise comeback. You can imagine the shock and excitement buzzing through the audience. But for anyone really paying attention, something was off. His arms were still massive, his iconic poses were still razor-sharp, but his overall conditioning just wasn't there. His waist looked thicker, his quads were way smaller, and that crisp muscle definition that once set him apart, pretty much gone. It got even more obvious during the comparisons. When he posed next to guys like Mike Mincer and Chris Dickerson, you couldn't unsee it. Arnold was clearly a step behind. The size was still there, sure, but the deep muscle separation and that dry, shredded look the judges were craving, nowhere to be found. Still, Arnold had one weapon that none of the others could match: pure, magnetic charisma. While the other competitors kept a serious, almost robotic vibe, Arnold owned the stage. He smiled, joked, and made it all look effortless, like he was just having fun. He wasn't just showing muscles. He was telling a story with every pose, pulling the crowd, and maybe even the judges, right into his world. And that difference in energy hit hard. While Mike Mincer stayed locked in, laser-focused on perfect technical execution, Arnold was up there playing with the moment, making faces, connecting with the audience, stealing the spotlight at every turn. The whole time, you could see Arnold using his experience and street smarts to flip his weaknesses into strengths. Where he lacked definition, he hit poses that highlighted his best features. Where there was doubt about his physique, he filled the gap with pure confidence and humor. No wonder people still say Arnold wasn't just competing. He was playing the game on stage. That kind of approach got mixed reactions. Part of the crowd loved seeing Arnold's charisma on full blast. But behind the scenes, a lot of the other competitors were getting seriously ticked off. Were they really being judged on their physiques alone? Or were they up against the aura of a living legend? After 3 intense rounds of posing and comparisons, the standings were already raising eyebrows. Arnold Schwarzenegger was leading with 295 points, just ahead of Frank Zane and Chris Dickerson. For anyone who actually watched the on-stage comparisons, that lead felt weird. Could you picture Arnold winning when it was clear he wasn't anywhere near his prime? When the final scores were announced, things went nuclear. Arnold got 5 out of 7 first-place votes from the judges, hitting the perfect score of 300. It was official. Against all odds, Arnold Schwarzenegger was the 1980 Mr. Olympia champ. But was that result really a reflection of what everybody had just witnessed? As Arnold celebrated his victory, a wave of shock hit the room. Mike Mincer, the guy most people thought deserved it, ended up in 5th place. For a lot of fans and experts, it was just unbelievable. The same crowd that had cheered Arnold's return just hours earlier, now they were booing loudly. The disappointment was obvious. The fans who adored Arnold weren't mad at him. They were furious about how the whole competition had been handled. It was the beginning of a credibility crisis that would haunt the event for years. Backstage, the anger was even worse. Frank Zane, fuming, reportedly threw his trophy against a wall. Boyer Co., Mike Mincer, and even Roger Walker didn't hold back either, slamming the event publicly, calling it a sham and a disgrace to the sport. And it wasn't just heat-of-the-moment stuff. A lot of athletes said afterward they had felt something was off way before show day. Arnold's cozy ties with the organizers, the sudden changes in the judging panel, the whole vibe of favoritism. They were all seen as signs that the outcome might have been pre-written before anyone even hit a pose. Was the 1980 Mr. Olympia rigged from the start? With all that controversy, the 1980 Mr. Olympia didn't just go down as a competition. It became a legend, full of backstage rumors, conspiracy theories, and heated debates that still rage today. And the fallout was brutal. Mike Mincer, who many felt had been the biggest victim of the night, made a bombshell decision. He would never compete again. An incredible talent, right at the peak of his career, just walked away from the sport because of one night he couldn't stomach. Can you imagine the level of frustration it takes to just quit everything after getting that close to the top? The athlete's outrage didn't just end with a few heated words. The following year, a lot of competitors decided to boycott the 1981 Mr. Olympia in protest. Big names who could have raised the level of the show simply refused to take part. Speaking of media, CBS, which had heavily invested in covering the 1980 Mr. Olympia, made a drastic move. After witnessing the backstage chaos and the clear lack of professionalism, they decided to pull the plug and not broadcast the event at all. It was a huge blow to the sport. Losing the support of a major TV network made it even harder for bodybuilding to break into the mainstream. What's even crazier, even within Arnold's inner circle, there were criticisms. Friends like Franco Columbu and Joe Gold, massive names in the industry, publicly admitted that Arnold hadn't been at his best during that competition. Imagine hearing your own close friends suggest you didn't truly deserve that win. Do you think that bruised Arnold's pride? Still, plenty of people stood by Arnold's victory. To them, bodybuilding wasn't just about muscle. It was also about presence, charisma, and the ability to inspire. And in that department, Arnold was still untouchable. But is it really fair to factor that in when a competition is supposed to judge only the body? That split in opinions only made the legend of the 1980 Mr. Olympia grow. On one side, those who saw it as a historic injustice. On the other, those who believed Arnold was so dominant that even off his game, he deserved to win. The truth is, the 1980 Mr. Olympia wasn't just another contest. It was a turning point. It marked the end of an era for many athletes, shifted the direction of sport, and further solidified Arnold's place not just as a bodybuilding icon, but as a global pop culture figure. The 1980 Mr. Olympia became legendary in the bodybuilding world. No other event has sparked as much debate, as many theories, or as many intense emotions as that night in Sydney. Decades later, it's still impossible to bring it up without feeling the weight of the controversy. Had you heard about this story before? Even today, fans, experts, and former competitors still argue passionately. Was it a well-deserved victory or pure backstage politics? Some believe Arnold's sheer presence made him unbeatable, while others point to blatant favoritism and injustice toward more deserving athletes. Whatever side you fall on, one thing's undeniable. The 1980 Mr. Olympia became part of bodybuilding's DNA. It taught the world that the best physique doesn't always win, that influence and behind-the-scenes power can tip the scales. And it changed the way future contests were viewed, both by athletes and fans. Do you think today's bodybuilding world has learned from those mistakes? While the controversy shook the sport, Arnold was moving in a whole different direction. He used all that exposure, good or bad, to launch his Hollywood career. Not long after, he starred in movies like Conan the Barbarian and The Terminator, becoming a worldwide icon. Meanwhile, many of the athletes who felt robbed that night chose to leave it in the past. Some kept competing, others walked away from the stage for good. But all of them carried the scars of that night. A night that didn't just change their careers, but changed the very history of the sport they loved. The 1980 Mr. Olympia remains a must-know chapter for anyone serious about understanding bodybuilding. It showed us that the stage doesn't always reflect just hard work and merit. Sometimes invisible forces shape the outcome. And it's up to us, the fans, to look at the facts, debate respectfully, and keep alive the memory of everyone who was part of that story. So, did you enjoy diving into the full story of the most controversial Mr. Olympia ever? If this video helped you understand this crucial chapter of bodybuilding history a little better, make sure to smash that like button to help support the channel. And I really want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Arnold truly deserved to win in 1980, or was it all politics behind the scenes? Drop your opinion down in the comments. Your voice is what makes this community even stronger.